Hello and welcome to a gameplay for all seasons. In today's Hogwarts Legacy video, I am talking to you about the students you could meet whilst you're at Hogwarts, depending when this game is set and if the developers choose to put these characters in. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the Sacred 28. I've already done a video on that. Maybe I'll put it in the description below or something if that sounds interesting to you and you want to check it out. If you want to stay up to date with all the Hogwarts Legacy news and speculation and general discussion, then I recommend you hit that subscription button. So let's get into this. So if we are talking about other students who may be at Hogwarts when this game is set, then I have to start with the very, very obvious one who I'm going to try not to spend too much time on, which is Albus Dumbledore. That's as much time as I want to spend on it. Obviously, he went there in the late 1800s. That's pretty well known. Don't want to spend too much time on that. Also, his brother's there, Aberthor, so he may be there while you're there as well. The person I actually wanted to talk about to start with is actually the sister, Ariana. Some of you know the story quite well and know the canon well, will know she didn't actually attend Hogwarts. She died when she was 14. However, I want to start with a slightly left field suggestion here. And to that end, she as a character would be in the Wizarding World. Her brothers would be at Hogwarts. And I think she's an interesting character. The reason she's interesting is she didn't go to Hogwarts because her magic was so unreliable and she was considered dangerous, so she was kept at home, and for that reason she didn't go. But I think it'd be quite nice if she suddenly turned up. Like I say, bit left field, but I wanted to start with that one and the slight connection to Dumbledore without actually going with Albus. And when I say she could be included, I don't mean she suddenly turns up as a student, because we know she didn't go there, but I mean she could turn up, maybe her brothers are there and she turns up because she's ran away and she wants to see her brothers at Hogwarts or something. Something relatively far-fetched with that, but I think as a character like herself that hasn't really been overly explored, I think that would be quite nice. Now, I do accept as my very first entry, not strictly students, so slightly broken my own list here, but I assure you my other four are all students that you should be able to interact with. Second character I wanted to mention then is Jesper Starkey. I'll be impressed if you know who that is. But this is a witch who lived from 1881 to 1973. She was featured on a famous wizard card because she was indeed a famous wizard. She has already been featured in a game. She was featured in The Prisoner of Azkaban all those years ago. She was a portrait that hid a secret room in Hogwarts. Once she was alive and when she was actually a student, she was very much a keen potioneer and astronomer, and she actually managed to merge those two interests to actually make even more powerful potions. So quite an interesting character if they decide to put her in it. The next person I wanted to mention then is, and this is someone who you should all be familiar with, is Bethilda Bagshot. Now, we know she was born in 1873 or earlier. So again, if this game is set in the late 1800s, there's every chance, if they developers wanted to put her in this, that Bethilda Bagshot could potentially be there. Now, in case you don't know who she was, she lived in Godric's Hollow and featured in Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows. She was reanimated by Lord Voldemort to contain his pet Nagini. I'm sure you now remember who I'm talking about there. But aside from that, she was Grindelwald's great auntie. She wrote loads of books, which is why she was well known. Lots of those were studied at Hogwarts. So the fourth student then that I wanted to mention could potentially be there is Harvey Ridgebit. Now, slightly suspiciously, he was also 1881 to 1973, which is the exact same time as Jesper Starkey was alive, but apparently that's canon. That's when he was alive. Now, who was he? He was a wizard and a dragonologist, not easy to say. He was the first person to catch a Peruvian viper tooth, also not that easy to say. Anyway, so he established the world's largest dragon sanctuary in Romania. You'll remember that was mentioned several times in the film, as that is where Charlie Weasley worked, and is also where Rubus Hagrid's dragon, Norbit, was eventually sent to live. And the last student I want to mention who you could potentially bump into, or they could be in a year above, they could be some sort of storyline around them, is a character or a student, hopefully if they're in the game, called Idris Oakbee. Now, Idris Oakbee was actually a witch and was born in 1872. There isn't that much known about her or whether she actually went to Hogwarts, but she's quite an interesting character because in her adult life she set up a charitable organisation called the Society for the Support of Squibs, which obviously supported squibs and helped them live in the Wizarding World. Now, that may not sound interesting to some people, I'm sure it does to some of you, but back then in the late 1800s, that would have been very much frowned upon by other wizards. Obviously, it was a slightly different time. So she really did help those people, which I think would make an interesting character to be included in the game. As I say, I recommend to subscribe if you haven't already, like the video, and I'll see you on the next one.